Tony D and Little Joan in the background, and this is a screenwriter's rant on Escape because uh, there's nothing else left to talk about. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books, links in the description. Comedy Heart in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 14, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. I'm not sure who made this. I think it might be South Korean. It might be Chinese, but it's definitely in Korean. And the premise is directed by Lee Jong-pil. I think that's a Korean name. It's about two guys trying to escape North Korea and to get to South Korea and to be free. I think one of the guys is killed and the other guy possibly escapes. And it looks pretty cool. I will decide my own future. And you know, the first off, the South Koreans. If this is a South Korean movie, let me see. Is it? Yeah, it doesn't say. Let me see. Let me see on the IMDb if it's on here. Some of the foreign movies don't make it on the list sometimes. So, Escape. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's on here. Yeah, so it's not on here. But it looks good. It looks like a solid thriller. Guys escaping a communist country where they've set up everything to make sure you can't desert, and the officers are terrible, and you know life is terrible. But they know there's something better on the South Korean side. That's why I'm pretty sure it's South Korean. It's a little propagandy from the South Korean perspective, but that's fine. North Korea is a communist country, and you should escape if you can. But so it's this exciting movie. I'll tell you the three acts. The first act is his life in North Korea as a soldier. It's terrible. He's forced into the military. He's abused. The officers taunt him. He doesn't have the guts to escape. He's a coward. You know, they taunt him. And finally, he's had enough, and he's got this plan to escape. I don't know if he tried to before. I kind of think they would have just shot him if he tried to escape even once. But I think he, you know, has some testing at first. He's got to create some sort of plan to get out. And then one of his buddies finds out he's escaping, and his response is not to turn him in, but take me with you. So they decide to both go. Maybe they have a better chance that way. And they try to escape. Most of the second act is them trying to escape. And they're being chased and they're being shot at. I think probably the second guy dies. You know, maybe he sacrifices himself so his friend can live. And I think it probably ends with him escaping. Yeah. Now, it could end a dark way. The dark way would be he gets knocked out. He thinks he's in South Korea, or maybe there's a trick where he goes with some guys who claim to be South Korean, but it turns out they're really North Korean in disguise, and they just take him back, and that's the end of the movie. That would be awful. I would like to see him escape. But part of the reason I'm looking at this trailer and not one of the others is, man, some of the trailers that come out of the West, they're just incomprehensible. Like I just looked at one tonight, Starbaker. It's practically incomprehensible. There's another horror movie I looked at. I couldn't tell you what it was about. I mean, there was a title. It's supposed to be a horror movie. It's weird. Doesn't make any sense to me. I just couldn't bring myself to look at even the trailer. I mean, this is how bad movies now are. They're so bad I don't even want to watch the trailer. I watched the trailer for a new series called The Land of Women, if you could believe that. I almost reviewed that. And, I guess it's just another... It didn't even look that bad, but it was just like another project for women, by women, women. Who's going to watch this? I don't know. Maybe the women might watch it. But again, I keep saying the same thing over and over, and that is women and men watch movies and they like stories differently. Now, it's not true of all women or all men. In fact, I met one of my fans last night, and I was saying like how women tend to like stories about relationship, and she said, I don't like stories about relationship. I would rather have stories about science fiction. But she was the exception rather than the rule. When I say most women, I mean like your average person, like somebody who's not into genre entertainment, somebody who just goes to work or makes a home or whatever, and typically they're not plugged into this stuff. So they watch whatever and they watch what they like, and it's going to be, stuff that's very broad, very general. And there's nothing wrong with that if you enjoy that. I'm not trying to knock that. But in Hollywood, they have completely lost the thread in terms of gauging what people want. And they're losing their audience. The movie theaters are dying. The movie industry is dying. And they keep doubling down. They just keep doubling down. I'm sorry to go on a tangent on this movie. I mean, this movie I would watch. 100% I would watch this movie. Because it looks like an actual movie. It's exciting. It's not just because there's two dudes in it. It makes sense. They're in the army. They're trying to escape. That makes sense. Like, they're escaping North Korea. They're Korean. Like, you can't F this one up with a bunch of woke BS unless you're really determined to make people go, well, that makes no sense. Women aren't in the army in North Korea. Or, there are no black North Koreans. This is what Hollywood has been doing, though, to everything. You look at The Alkalite. I mean, The Alkalite is so... it's just breathtaking how absolutely far it is from Star Wars. Like, so far from Star Wars that why did you even do this? Why didn't you just start your own show? And the answer always comes back to the same thing, I think. The left, the commies, can't really make anything. They can only take something that's been done before and warp it beyond recognition, ruin it while defending it endlessly. People are defending The Alkalite endlessly. Now, a lot of them are probably shills or bots, but some of them aren't. Some of them are actual people. But I think these people, they either have never really watched decent movies before. They're mostly younger people who don't have a refined enough taste to know what a good movie is and feel like, oh, I need to speak up for my show, The Alkalite. Or they're just people who like crap, I guess. Or maybe they've never seen anything good. And so the bar is so low, they see that and they say, well, this is pretty good. Why are you dumping on it? I think a lot of it, though, is they want to defend their political position through movie and TV criticism. And I just don't get it, right? I just don't get it. Politics has nothing to do with this industry. It just has nothing to do with it, unless there's, a political story. But even that, you can't, there was a great movie, if you want to talk about a political thriller, was No Way Out with Kevin Costner. If you haven't seen it, it's a really good film. Big surprise ending. I won't spoil it for you, but, it wasn't about, it did have politics in it, but it didn't have specific politics in it. It didn't have, like, guys you would know. There was a senator, I think, in it, and guys in Washington, and there was some corruption and whatnot, but you wouldn't have watched that and said, oh, that's so-and-so from this administration and that's so-and-so from that administration. That's not what it's for. It's for to, first off, entertain, number one. Number two, it's a political thriller, so it has to be political intrigue, but it doesn't have to be specific to one party. But back then, Hollywood, at least, and they were still fighting the Cold War when that movie came out. I think it was maybe just after the Cold War, maybe right after or right when it was finally ending. It's a pretty old movie, but the you know, it wasn't like the filmmakers had something to prove, other than they wanted to entertain you first. This movie, Escape, wants to entertain. Everything else, just everything I see today, where's the entertainment? Who wants this? You know, at least The Land of Women was based on a book, so I guess some people wanted that. God, it was tiresome to watch. Maybe I'll review it tomorrow or whatever. Maybe I'll talk about it in the live stream tomorrow at 7, by the way. I mean, I'm sorry to rant. I mean, you know, this is a perfectly fine movie, and we used to make these. It's not that hard. It really isn't. You know, if you want to make an exciting, thrilling movie, you just go with the basics, right? I mean, this is Escape. Well, we want an escape movie. Okay, where can you escape from? Well, you can escape from North Korea. Boom, you got a whole movie. I mean, it's pretty basic. What else can you escape from? Well, you can escape from prison. Boom, you got a prison movie. You know, it's not that hard. You start with the basics, and then you add the details, and you polish and refine it. Now it just seems like, well, we have to have people of various races and gender preferences and creeds, and no, you don't have to have that at all. I mean, you could if it's relevant to the plot in some way. You know, it was hard enough in I'll say, 20, 30 years ago. A lot of times you had to write something that could be good for a particular star, right? So one time I was in LA and I was trying to sell my scripts, and I got the pitch to this producer because I wanted to pitch, and she liked my ideas, and I said, well, would you be interested in any of them? She said, well, I'm the producer for Cheech Marin, and I'm looking for projects for him. So she wanted something specifically for Cheech Marin. And at the time, I didn't really know how to respond to that. My response should have been, I'll have you something in 2 weeks. And then I should have went home immediately and banged out a Cheech Marin screenplay. But I didn't really understand totally. I just thought, oh, I'm in the wrong office. That was probably the wrong move. She was very nice. I mean, but then again, I could have spent 2 weeks writing a Cheech Marin screenplay, and she would have went, no. And then I'd be stuck with a screenplay that basically was written for Cheech Marin. Maybe wouldn't have had a lot of other places to take that to, but the point is, like, at least it would have been a movie. It just frustrates me that no one seems to be producing movies. And I think it is true, the critical drinker called The Alkalite anti-entertainment. And that's not the only thing coming out like that. There are more movies and TV shows that seem to just be made for spite. To spite their audience, not to give the audience something. And look, these woke tards, you could make a woke movie and still entertain. You can make a quality movie and still put your woke things in it, and it could still be good up to a point. And in fact, you could have a movie like, for instance, James Bond, right? God, they ruined the James Bond franchise. I know, I'm off on a huge tangent, but bear with me. Bond, and I talk about this all the time, like, they just seem to have ruined Bond. But there was a time when they were like, oh, we're going to replace it with a black woman. First off, they already tried to give Bond a partner when they introduced Halle Berry, and they tried to do a spin-off. But you could have, I mean, that was at least an attempt to create something new, You could have done something similar to with Bond, with a character, a character from I don't know, an agency from another country who was black and was very good at her job too, and they team up to stop a nuclear war or whatever. And if it was good enough, people might say, "Oh, okay, we're going to spin off that spy in her own adventures." Maybe James Bond will show up and say hi, and you could even have a cameo. And people would have loved that. And is that even woke? I don't even know. I mean, you could just... I think where wokeness comes in, it's woke if it's ridiculously lopsided, right? So if you had a balanced movie in which you introduce this new character who's black and woman, and it's balanced, it's not woke. But if you introduce this character and you emasculate James Bond and you just pour heaps of praise unnecessarily on the other character, well, then it is woke. Because it's like, we can see the obvious bias. And you just don't need to do that. You just need to execute a competent movie and a competent story with a character that happens to be black and female, for example. It's possible. It's happened. But it's like Hollywood is so devoid of talent now. And the talent it does have is so handicapped by this DEI. So imagine you turn in a script and, you have a character who's black and female or whatever, maybe they're trans or maybe they're gay. And then all your notes are like, well, you criticize the character here, or you're not heaping praise on them constantly. That's something a screenwriter would be able to say, well, that's not going to work. You can't walk into a room and just immediately start praising someone just because they're gay or whatever. But if the suits have that mandate, they tend to overcompensate because they're not screenwriters. They're not creatives. They're just corporate guys who are desperate to please the corporate guy above them or get ESG points or whatever the hell they're trying to do with the movie industry. And now it's so bad it's coming across in the trailers. I mean, like, I understand why the nerds all watch The Acolyte and, raked it over the coals, but honestly, I don't think I could have brought myself to watch The Acolyte. Even if I was, like, at the level of, say, Gary or The Critical Drinker, and, I got hundreds of thousands of fans, and they're like, oh, you gotta review it. I honestly don't think I could have reviewed it. First off, I'm not paying for Disney Plus. I mean, that's number one. So, I don't want to steal it. I don't want to be a thief. I'm a creative too. I don't want people to steal my stuff. I feel like it's bad karma. Maybe if my friend has Disney Plus, he let me watch the the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, which was pretty good, by the way. I mean, if I really wanted to watch it, I could go over to his house and watch it, and then, spit out a review hours later. But I don't even want to do that. I don't even want to waste the 30 minutes or hour or however long the episode is to watch it. It's so bad to me just watching the trailer. I could barely get through the trailer, quite frankly. And a lot of these trailers are like that. I mean, I watched the Starve Acre trailer twice because I didn't understand it. I was trying to figure out, what the hell is this movie about? That's not a very good sign for trailer or the movie. Same thing with the other horror movie I thought about reviewing tonight. It's just an S show now. It's a complete S show. Forget about fixing the theaters. They're done the show. I guess if you can fix the theaters by, I guess, showing old movies. You could run maybe a second run movie theater where you show nothing but classics. I think people would actually go to that if you only charge them a reasonable amount of money to see a movie. At least they'd be seeing a good movie. No previews. I mean, quite frankly, that sounds pretty appealing to me. And we called them the dollar movies back in the day. Now, this is like 70s and 80s. But they had dollar movies. So they were second run movies before everything got, digitized. Even in the movie theaters, they're digitized now. And you could see last year's movies for $1. because there was no internet, there was no streaming service, there was barely any HBO or any of that stuff. I think maybe a theater like that would do okay. I think if you had enough of a library to show movies, and you kept it relatively cheap, I wouldn't mind going to see a classic movie, possibly a movie I'd never seen on the big screen that I like, in the theaters, or maybe a classic one I already saw in the theaters again. I just don't know what these guys are going to do at this point. I mean, as a guy who wrote screenplays and wants to write screenplays, it's just kind of like, where would I send a good screenplay? I'm older, I'm white, these people are running on DEI still, so that puts up huge hurdles. I mean, the next step for me would be to partner with somebody who was young and in the DEI category, and kind of be the front, and so they could be the front man or front woman or front they, and then together we write a screenplay, but really I do most of the writing. And we turn it in and get it sold, and then become a team. But even that, unless my partner knows what they're doing, or are willing to take a complete backseat creatively, which at first they might be, but later on they probably won't be. It's not even going to work. And and I've got screenplays written. I've got clients who bought my screenplays and they're trying to make them work, and some of them are being shot. And hopefully they get distribution, but it's just and there's good movies out there. I mean, I just talked to the guy not too long ago, and who did Manatico Blues, and he made the movie in 2019, and he tried to get distribution for it. And hey, look, it's an odd movie, but it's not a bad movie. I found it entertaining. And believe me, I've seen a lot worse. There's a lot worse out there. Had an exciting ending. They could have released that. They could have done some amount of distribution. And he couldn't get a distribution deal. So he just put it on the internet, which is nice. I mean, you can see it for free, but he did all that work. I think he deserved some amount of distribution. But meanwhile, like, what's coming out is it's so out there. It's so esoteric. It's like the people in charge are so out to lunch. They're either lost in a world of art where everything has to subvert expectations infinity, and it makes no sense, or they're so committed to their ideology they want that, and or they just are committed to the people because of their particular attributes, and they just say, well, that must be good because you have a voice and you're a marginalized person or whatever. It just doesn't make any sense. It's a formula for what we have. We have a South Korean movie, comes out, it's rock solid. This movie's rock solid. Escape. It's exciting. I want to see it. You can get psyched for a movie like this. It's subtitled or whatever, but which takes you out of it a little bit. But this is going to be action. It's going to be intense. It's probably going to have a big payoff at the end. The other movies, most of the other movies I see, most of the trailers, I go, when I do like 3 trailer things, when I watch 3 of them, and I get picked the best one or the worst one, it's like they're all kind of bad. It's very rare that I get 3 of them and like, well, these are all pretty good. I would see them. Like, it's usually like, yeah, pick your poison, I guess. All right. Sorry for the rant. That's it for me, Tony D. Oh, by the way, Escape comes out in July. And Little Joan. Check us out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for our more based takes. Tomorrow I'll be at the Toms River show in Toms River, New Jersey. It's the 10th anniversary of the comic show from 10 to 4 in the Elks Lodge there in Tom's River. So I hope to see you there. We'll see you